In today's video, I'll be sharing one of the most popular deep space objects and the one that inspired me to start my own journey into astrophotography, as it is in a prime position to image all night long. I'm Brady Bell of the Humble Pursuit of Astrophotography, and let's take a look at what you can go out and image in the night sky for November. Before we discuss the constellations and deep sky objects that are visible this month, I would like to outline my selection process. I get my recommendations from constellationguide.com. Their methodology is as follows. Each constellation is optimally observed in the evening sky during specific times of the year. Whether they are just above the horizon or visible throughout the night from a particular location, the constellations listed are visible at 9 p.m. in November. While there are additional constellations that can be seen in the evening sky at various times, these represent those that are most favorable for observation during this month. Let's jump right in first with the Andromeda constellation. Located between the constellations of Copia and Pisces, it is visible between latitudes 90 degrees north and 40 degrees south. In mythology, Andromeda is the daughter of Cepheus and Cassiopeia, constellations that will also come up this month, along with Cetus, the name of the sea monster Andromeda is supposed to be sacrificed to. We have one of the most recognizable and imaged DSOs with the Andromeda galaxy. It is accompanied by Messier 32 and 110. The Andromeda galaxy is an impressive 6 full moons across, so you'll need a fairly wide field setup to get it all in the same frame. It also happens to be the closest major galaxy to the Milky Way, and if you plan to be around in about 4 to 5 billion years from now, you'll get to see quite the show as our galaxy and the Andromeda galaxy are on a collision course. I pulled this image of NGC 891, the Outer Lemmings galaxy, also known as the Silver Sliver galaxy from NASA. It is a really nice edge-on galaxy, approximately 30 million light years away. It may appear much smaller in your field of view depending on your setup, but can still make for a stunning image. I'm hoping for some clear nights this November so that I can image this for the first time. I personally think clusters are an underrated option for a lot of imagers and one of my favorite objects to image. This trio of star clusters in Andromeda doesn't get much love, but definitely worth a visit. This is NGC 752, an open star cluster approximately 1,400 light years from Earth and containing around 300 members. The last ones I'm going to mention in Andromeda come together are LBN 534 and VDB 158, which make up what is called the cosmic checkmark. It is a really cool molecular cloud and reflection nebula that make a very stunning image. If you haven't heard of it, you should definitely check it out. This is another one I'm hoping to tackle this November. Next up is one of the more notable constellations with tons of interesting objects to image. Cassiopeia is easily spotted in the night sky for the prominent W asterism formed by its 5 brightest stars. First up is one of the few clusters I've ever seen visually, NGC 457, the Owl cluster. After seeing it, I knew I had to get an image of it. It is also sometimes called the ET cluster. I think it looks more like an owl. It lies approximately 7,900 light years away and contains between 60 to 150 members. NGC 7635, the Bubble Nebula, is an interesting emission nebula with a bubble-like structure formed from stellar wind from the super-hot, massive central star of the structure. The bubble itself is around 7 light years across and resides 7,100 light years away. The Heart and Soul Nebulae are a stunning duo of emission nebula and star clusters, located about 6,000 light years from Earth. The two nebula are both massive star-making factories, marked by giant bubbles that were blown into surrounding dust by radiation and wind from the stars. SH2 173, commonly called the Phantom of the Opera Nebula, because, well, it very much resembles the mask worn by the Phantom of the Opera in the musical, which is crazy. It is very faint, so you either need to get to some very dark skies or expect to put a lot of integration time into this target, probably both. Another faint but interesting object is Able 85, called either the Pop Balloon, Garlic, or Medulla Nebula because of its shape. It is an expanding gas shell, which are the results of a massive star going supernova. It is another object that will require dark skies or lots of integration time. We are moving to another popular constellation, Cepheus, which is full of some very popular dark nebula, as well as some very well-known deep sky objects. This constellation is also home to several of the largest stars in the Milky Way. The Iris Nebula, a blue gem in the night sky, is a reflection nebula named for its resemblance of the iris flower. It lies 1,300 light years away. The blue color comes from dust reflecting the starlight. It is one of the most popular targets for astrophotographers. This next duo can actually be a pretty fantastic trio with the Rotten Fish Nebula, if you have a wide enough field of view. This next duo can actually be a pretty fantastic trio with the Rotten Fish Nebula if you have a wide enough field of view. But the dark shark and dark penguin are a great example of pareidolia, the phenomenon where we see recognizable shapes in otherwise random or unrelated objects. Both of these are composed of interstellar gas and dust expelled from giant stars. They are also accompanied by a blue reflection nebula each. Targets like these require plenty of integration time or dark skies. Next, we have Barnard 150, the Seahorse Nebula, one of my favorite dark nebula because who doesn't like a seahorse? The dusty-looking sea animal is part of a molecular cloud found some 1,200 light years away. Dark nebulae like this are regions of dense dust and gas that obscure the stars or other objects behind them, which is why you don't see any stars. The next constellation we are exploring is the Cetus, or Whale constellation. It is the fourth largest constellation in the night sky. I am not as familiar with this constellation as the previous three, as it lies pretty low on my southern horizon as I'm at 47 degrees north, which makes me sad because that means I don't have any of my own images from this constellation, but I have pulled some images from NASA. If you want to see some other amazing images of these targets, you can always visit the site astrobin.com and search for these to see some pretty incredible amateur images. Messier 77 is a beautiful barred spiral galaxy approximately 47 million light years away. Even in pretty wide field of views, it fills the frame pretty well. You can also get the galaxy NGC 1055 in the frame as well, depending on your telescope and camera. Like I said previously, there are some pretty stunning images of this galaxy by amateurs, so if you can get the opportunity to image Messier 77, you definitely should. If you're looking for a great new target for Halloween next year, you can get an early jump on this next target, NGC 246, the Skull Nebula. This planetary nebula is named so because, well, it looks somewhat like a skull. Not as much as the Rosette Nebula in my opinion, but still pretty cool. It is also the first known planetary nebula to have a hierarchical triple star system. At the center are two stars, one being the white dwarf causing the planetary nebula, but is concealing the third star, a red dwarf. These two dwarf stars orbit each other as a pair, and the other star that is also visible near the center orbits the pair. Moving considerably closer than Messier 77, NGC 247, the Needle's Eye Galaxy, is a nearby 11 million light years away. It gets its name from the mysterious void found toward one side of the spiral galaxy that spans close to a third of the galaxy's length. Some recent studies suggest it may have been caused by gravitational interactions with part of another galaxy. Depending on the setup you're using, you may be able to see Burbage's chain, a chain of galaxies about 300 million light years away. Lastly, we will be taking a look at the constellation of Pisces. Meaning fish in Latin, this constellation represents the two fish that Venus and Cupid in Roman mythology turned themselves into in order to escape Typhon. This is another constellation that I'm not as familiar with, but I'm hoping to fix that this November as I'm planning to image some of its deep space objects this November, if I can get a clear night. Again, I pulled these images from NASA, but you can certainly pull up amazing amateur images with a quick Google search. The one I'm hoping to spend considerable time with is Messier 74, the Phantom Galaxy. At around 32 million light years away, this grand design spiral galaxy fits lovely in the field of view of my Newtonian telescope and dedicated astrocam. If you're trying to visually observe this galaxy, prepare to be frustrated, as it is one of the most difficult to observe due to its low surface brightness and an apparent magnitude of 10. The last object is what I think is a really interesting object. NGC 660 is classified as a polar ring galaxy, which means that it has a belt of gas and stars orbiting in rings around its center that it pulled from a neighbor galaxy. I would highly recommend that you look this galaxy up because unfortunately the polar ring cannot be seen in this image. Another interesting thing about NG 660 is that in 2012, astronomers observed a massive outburst that was around 10 times as bright as a supernova explosion. It was thought to be caused by a massive jet coming out of a supermassive black hole at the center of the galaxy. That wraps up our astrophotography targets for November. Remember, this list is a starting point. Ideal targets will vary based on your location, conditions, and setup. While these constellations are optimal this month, many can still be imaged before or after, so be sure to check resources like Stellarium or Telescopius for location-specific framing. If you've captured any of these targets or have suggestions for others to add, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. And if you'd like to support the channel, check out my affiliate links for Agena Astro and High Point Scientific in the description. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and clear skies.